In the last days of Atlantis, a battle between the scientists and technologists on the one side and the spiritual community on the other began. You could call it the battle between mind and heart. There was intense pressure to bleed Atlantis and beyond, dry of her lifeblood, to feed the demand for riches, but many resisted. Gaia herself, violated and disregarded for years, protested through sporadic earthquakes, floods, volcanic eruptions and tsunamis. The tide of greed continued to gather force, however, as did the insatiable desire for power. The Temple of Light remained as it always had been, a sacred place of extraordinary interdimensional spirituality. The High Priestess and certain of her acolytes knew what was occurring beyond and recognized the challenges to the master plan, but saw also that the experience was the ultimate choice of mankind and should be accepted as such without judgment. What to do about it was their challenge, personally and spiritually. The Dark Masters saw also that while the Temple of Light survived and its flame of service burned, they could not achieve their aim of spiritual and world domination. The temple and its servants had to be destroyed. The temple was the key. In order to control spirit, the Dark Masters in Atlantis had to destroy the great Temple of Light, which held the cosmic secrets they sought. They had within their power a number of junior priests and priestesses whom they had corrupted both sexually and with the promise of riches. Their minds had been turned and all sense of moral integrity had been stripped away. They waited within the sacred fastness of the temple for the signal to administer drugs to the High Priestess and her loyal acolytes, which would render them paralyzed and blind, unable to escape but locked in their bodies. The drugs would close down all the chakras, severing all psychic and spiritual links, and would act as a truth drug. Meanwhile, skilled Atlantean technologists and black magicians, hungry for fame and advancement, had studied the workings of nature with the intent of controlling it, and they thought they had succeeded. The plan was for them to harness the energies of the earth and to create an earthquake which would be localized immediately under the Temple of Light, destroying it, but leaving the rest of the continent unharmed. It was risky, but they were confident they would succeed, for they believed nothing could better their scientific and magical knowledge. Within the temple, the High Priestess, herself a master of the light, was in constant communication with the source through the mighty quartz crystal, which was the centerpiece of the crystal structure, and through meditation and ancient ritual. She knew of the dark plan before it was devised. It would have been easy for her and her friends to leave the place using the portal within the crystal. But by abandoning the temple in this way, she risked the violation of cosmic secrets and the likelihood that Atlantis would become a potent center of darkness, which would take over the world and destroy the plan of God. She had to be there until the end. On the last day of Atlantis, the plan was ready. Time to begin exactly in accordance with the perfect astrological profile for battle and success. But success for whom? The rogue priests, as instructed, dropped poison into the altar cups of those they wished to destroy, but their targets had prepared themselves through prayer, healing and cleansing, and the use of natural antidotes given to them by skilled herbalists, and the poison had no effect. When men arrived to capture them for torture and brainwashing, they were confronted by the sight of a ring of priestesses moving ritualistically around a great fire which burned within the blue crystal. They were filled with an unearthly light, and strange music played seemingly from nowhere, while mythical creatures of magnificence accompanied them. The men were filled with fear and ran away. Deep within the earth, below, the elementals which had been enslaved waited, but very conscious of the rituals going on in the temple above them. The signal came for the earthquake to begin, and as it did, a bolt of energy like lightning came through the crystal layers and released the earth spirits to do the bidding of God. They created an earthquake, but rather than destroying just the temple above, it spread underground until it reached the place of capitalism, the home of the Dark Masters, and erupted explosively there before spreading beyond. Tidal waves of enormous proportions were created, and dormant volcanoes came to life, and Atlantis began to break apart and become submerged. The Temple of Light continued to stand. All the sacred wisdoms contained within the crystalline structures, and the priestesses who waited, knowing it was their task to destroy the place they loved and themselves for the sake of the spiritual future of the planet. As Atlantis heaved and burned below them, they took the temple secrets into themselves, to be held until it was time for them to be released into the world again. The High Priestess, surrounded by those who were left, took the sacred rod of initiation and invoked the power of God as she drew sacred symbols over the blue crystal, and the others chanted mantras of great power. With a crash of thunder and an explosion of light, the blue crystal cracked, and the force of the event caused the temple to shudder, and sheets of heavy crystal began to fall on those who were there. Most were killed immediately, but the High Priestess continued to stand in the center of the crystal, newly exposed, speaking in a strange tongue as she did the bidding of spirit, using a form of magic never seen before or since, working with stars and moons and nature, with beings from other planets to ensure her mission was completed. The temple shattered around her, and Atlantis disappeared beneath seething waves. Some of the people who survived, fleeing in ships to other lands at night, spoke of seeing a pillar of light coming upon the broken temple, and that when the light lifted, the temple was not to be seen. The mission was complete.